Well, let's bring you some analysis now on the flare-up of xenophobia in South Africa. I'm joined from Johannesburg by Roshan Dadu. He's from the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Roshan, thank you for your time this evening. Now, of course, this isn't the first time that we're seeing incidents of xenophobia in South Africa. Just talk us through what the Consortium believes are the core underlying issues at play.
Well, I think one of the reasons it keeps flaring up is that the government is extremely reluctant to acknowledge there's a problem with xenophobia. And if you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, you don't go out and proactively challenge the many myths and misconceptions that are rife in all our communities around migration and migrants in our country. In addition, they have not implemented recommendations that were made by a very comprehensive report of the Human Rights Commission in 2010 after the 2008 violence. And those recommendations covered all spheres of government and civil society. None of them have consistently been implemented or sustained. Things around education in schools, all sorts of long-term programs that maybe had they been implemented would not have made us in this situation to keep reoccurring, such as in 2015 and now unfortunately today again.
And of course, it is understood, and we've seen it being condemned quite a lot, the violence and the xenophobic rhetoric being condemned, and rightfully so. But do you think there is some truth to claims by marginalized members of society that indeed foreigners are taking up economic opportunities at the expense of host communities?
No, that isn't borne out by any of the data. In fact, if you look at this province, which includes Tshwane, where the march was held today, Johannesburg, the major economic centre of the country, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, but the highest number of migrants. So there doesn't seem to be a connection between those two things. Most of the migrants that come into Gauteng, this province, are actually coming from other South African provinces. So the number of people that come from across our borders, the majority of whom are from neighbour countries, is quite small. And most of those seem to take up their own self-employment and run small businesses and so on. So the idea that jobs are being lost is completely untrue. And in fact, data from the Gauteng City Regional Observatory showed that these small businesses of non-nationals coming into this province were more likely to employ South Africans. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions, and we need to unpack these and really look at what the real problems are and the real causes of unemployment in our country, of crime, of poverty. And one of the key things, inequality, and that inequality is between South Africans. We need to really understand what's going on here.
And indeed, as you mentioned, there were recommendations coming from the Human Rights Commission that were never enacted. But what more needs to be done by both government and citizens and other stakeholders, in fact, to help strike a workable balance between upholding the interests of South African citizens and protecting the rights of foreign nationals?
Well, I think we have the same interests as citizens and as foreign nationals in our country. And in fact, that's what the Constitution says. We have the same rights to basic services, health and education, the same rights to human dignity. And if we understand that we have those same rights, far and away the majority of people, obviously in South Africa, are South African citizens. In a population of around 56 million, maybe 2 million, 3 million are people who are born outside of this country. So it's not a sense of competition, it's a sense of upholding all our rights. And for that to happen, yes, the government needs to listen to communities. The grievances are around crime, they're around unemployment, they're around lack of opportunities, lack of services, housing, implementation of those things, implementation of housing delivery, and so on. And unless we are prepared to take responsibility ourselves, or our government is, for these issues, as well as unpacking the myths around migration and migrants, I think we're not going to move forward on this issue. But if we do that, I think it's possible for all of us to enjoy the rights that are enshrined in our Constitution.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Roshan Dadu, there from the Consortium of Refugees and Migrants in South Africa.